You know those people who seem to disappear from the corporate ladder? Not the dramatic, I quit my job and moved to Bali types. The quiet ones. One day they're networking, chasing promotions, optimizing their LinkedIn profiles, and talking about their 5-year plans. Then, almost without anyone noticing, they're gone. They're living in a smaller house, working fewer hours, driving an older car, turning down opportunities that everyone else would fight for. And somehow, they seem okay with it. Maybe even happier. While most people are pushing harder, collecting certifications, and climbing toward the next level, there's an entire group of people who have quietly stepped off the treadmill. At first glance, it looks like they've given up. But what if they've simply stopped playing a game they no longer wanted to win? To understand that, we have to start with why most people stay in the race. The truth is, the rat race isn't some grand conspiracy. It's deeply connected to how human beings evolved. Your brain has a reward system that responds to achievement. Promotions, raises, recognition, status. These things trigger powerful feelings of satisfaction because for most of human history, social status improved your chances of survival. Higher status meant more resources, more security, and more influence within the group. In other words, your brain was designed to care about climbing. Modern society has simply attached that ancient instinct to job titles, salaries, and career milestones. Every promotion feels like progress. Every raise feels like validation. Every achievement delivers a small reward that keeps you moving toward the next one. The problem is that the finish line keeps moving. You get the promotion, and after a few months it feels normal. You buy the bigger house, and eventually it becomes ordinary. You hit the goal you spent years chasing only to discover another goal waiting behind it. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. No matter how far you run, enough always seems just a little farther away. For most people, that's simply how life works. But then there are the people who step off. The interesting part isn't that they leave. The interesting part is why. For many of them, there comes a moment when the equation changes. Sometimes it's burnout. Years of constant pressure eventually stop feeling motivating and start feeling exhausting. What once felt like ambition begins to feel like survival. The inbox becomes a source of anxiety, the meetings become noise, the career that once energized them starts draining them. Sometimes it's a health scare. A doctor's appointment suddenly forces them to think beyond the next quarter or the next promotion. Sometimes it's watching someone they love reach the end of their life filled with regrets. A parent, a mentor, a friend, someone who spent decades chasing success only to realize they sacrificed things that mattered more. And sometimes nothing dramatic happens at all. People simply wake up one day and realize they've been climbing a ladder without ever asking whether it was leaning against the right wall. That's when everything changes. Because once that question enters your mind, it's difficult to ignore. What am I actually optimizing for? More money? More status? More recognition? Or something else entirely? For people who leave the race, the answer often shifts. They start valuing things that don't show up on a resume. Time, freedom, health, relationships, autonomy, the ability to control their own schedule, the ability to spend an afternoon with family without checking emails every 10 minutes, the ability to wake up without immediately feeling behind. From the outside, these choices can look irrational. Why would someone voluntarily earn less? Why would someone walk away from prestige? Why would someone choose a smaller life when they have the opportunity for a bigger one? But that's only true if money and status are the metrics you're using. Change the metric, and the decision starts making sense. The challenge is that stepping off the ladder comes with costs. The first cost is identity. For years, maybe decades, your career becomes part of who you are. It's how you introduce yourself. It's how you measure progress. It's how you compare yourself to your peers. When you leave that behind, you're forced to answer a difficult question: who am I when I'm no longer climbing? That's not a simple adjustment. For many people, it feels like losing a piece of themselves. The second cost is social pressure. Society has a script: work hard, earn more, Move up. Keep going. When you step away from that script, people get confused. Some assume you're struggling, others assume you've lost your ambition, some genuinely worry about you. And while their concern may be sincere, it can also create doubt, because whenever someone chooses a different path, it forces everyone else to examine their own. The third cost is uncertainty. The traditional path offers clear rules. More money, better title, higher position, simple. But when you leave that system behind, you lose the scoreboard. And without a scoreboard, you have to define success for yourself. That's both liberating and terrifying, because now the responsibility belongs entirely to you. No company can tell you if you're winning. No title can validate your choices. You have to decide what matters. And many people discover they've never seriously thought about that before. Here's where things become interesting. Research consistently shows that people who prioritize time and autonomy often report higher life satisfaction. But happiness isn't automatic. Leaving the race doesn't magically solve all your problems. In fact, it creates new ones. Without constant goals and external rewards, some people experience a strange kind of emptiness. Achievement had been providing structure. It had been giving direction. It had been answering questions they never had to ask. Once it's gone, deeper questions emerge. What gives my life meaning? What do I genuinely enjoy? What am I here for? Those questions don't have easy answers. And that's why some people run back to the race. Not because they loved it, because it was familiar, because it gave them certainty, because it kept them busy enough to avoid asking difficult questions. But the people who stay off the treadmill eventually discover something remarkable. They begin building a different relationship with success. Instead of measuring life through external achievements, they start measuring it internally. Did I spend time on things that matter? Did I show up for the people I care about? Did I enjoy my day? Did I live according to my values? These questions sound simple, but they're surprisingly radical in a culture obsessed with performance. Over time, something else changes too. Many people report experiencing time differently. When you're constantly chasing the next goal, time feels scarce. Every week disappears, every month blurs together. Life starts feeling like a series of deadlines. But when the pace slows, time becomes visible again. You notice the seasons. You remember your weekends. You pay attention to conversations instead of rushing through them. You feel present. And presence is something many successful people spend years searching for after they've already achieved everything they thought they wanted. Perhaps the most surprising discovery is that people who leave the race aren't necessarily less ambitious. They've simply redirected their ambition. Instead of optimizing for status, they're optimizing for freedom. Instead of maximizing income, they're maximizing control over their lives. Instead of asking, how high can I climb? They're asking, how well can I live? Those are very different games. Neither is inherently right or wrong. Neither is superior. They're simply built around different values. The people who stay in the race aren't misguided. They're pursuing security, achievement, and recognition. Those are legitimate human desires. The people who step away aren't lazy or unmotivated. They're pursuing autonomy, presence, and meaning. Those are legitimate human desires too. The important thing is understanding which game you're actually playing, because many people spend decades pursuing goals they inherited from society without ever examining whether those goals belong to them. The quiet exiters have done something most people never do. They stopped. They questioned the assumptions. They looked at the rules everyone else accepted and asked whether those rules still made sense for them. That takes courage. The courage to disappoint expectations. The courage to tolerate uncertainty. The courage to define success on your own terms. And maybe that's the biggest misconception about leaving the race. It's not an escape from difficulty. It's a trade. You exchange one set of challenges for another. You give up clear metrics in exchange for freedom. You give up certainty in exchange for autonomy. You give up external validation in exchange for internal alignment. That's not easier. In many ways, it's harder. But for the people who make that choice, it's worth it. Because once you've experienced what it feels like to live according to your own values instead of someone else's expectations, it's difficult to go back. The ladder will always be there. The promotions will always exist. The race will keep running, but so will the alternative. A quieter path, a slower path, a path where success isn't measured by how impressive your life looks from the outside, but by how it feels from the inside. And for some people, that's the most meaningful victory of all.